the struggles that we do face, it causes each of us to grow. And that's better than perfect, because if you just had a perfect relationship, then you don't have growth.
Welcome back to the Love Stories Podcast. I'm your host, Charlene Byars. I am so excited to welcome my next guest to the show today, John and Nicole Sonmez, the host of the Better Than Perfect podcast, focus on teaching couples how modern traditional relationships is the key to a lifelong partnership full of passion and love. John is a former software developer and the founder of Bulldog Mindset, where he teaches personal development and masculinity to men. And Nicole is a stay-at-home mom to their daughter, Sophia. I can't wait for you to hear this conversation. Get ready for a raw, and I mean raw and real and truthful conversation about love and commitment and what it takes to get out of our own way and find the one. And remember, stick around for the tip of the week at the end of the show. Welcome to Love Stories, a relationship podcast for successful women, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, and how great love stories are made. I'm Charlene Byars, and I'm so excited to share all the things that you can apply to create a beautiful love story of your own. Cheers to great love. Well, hello, John and Nicole.
Hi.
I am so excited. And this is the funniest thing. Every time I have a new guest, I really genuinely, I'm excited. I just get excited. But recently I have been doing a little research on you two and, the work that you guys are doing and the podcast that you guys have. And it's awesome. Seriously, it's awesome. And I know we're going to talk about that today. And I really want, the listeners to be able to, go listen to your podcast because, wow, you guys have a lot of nuggets going on. I mean, lots of nuggets. But I was kind of thinking about, okay, how we're going to start this podcast. And I was thinking, okay, let me start with a little bit of rapid fire. Let's warm it up kind of conversations. Okay. And then we'll switch over. Okay. Okay. So how about this? And it doesn't matter who answers first. Okay. So if you're feeling it, let's go for it. All right.
Okay.
How did you two meet?
A dating app.
Yeah.
Surprisingly.
A dating app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Tinder.
Yes.
Tinder.
Tinder. I love it. Okay. So you met on a dating app. Okay. Yeah. So let me ask you this then. Okay. And I know I said it doesn't matter who answers, but now I'm going to go here because you answer that. Okay.
Okay.
What was your first impression of Nicole?
Oh, wow.
Very first impression when you saw her.
I think I was thinking I have to meet, I hope that she matches me. Like I normally wouldn't have thought that, but that's what I thought. And then, obviously when I saw her in person and met her in person, then I thought, okay, I could get used to this. This I could get used to. That's what. Yeah.
I also met him wearing like a black witchy looking dress and a witch hat. It had like a witch vibe going on.
Yeah. So your first impression was like, wow.
I was like, I'm going for a witch vibe. And he was into it. I was like, okay, he passed the test.
He passed the test.
I definitely felt it was something completely different.
Okay.
Right. When
From
we were
start.
on our first date, I just knew that this was not... it was not what I was used to.
Okay.
But, I felt like this was something that was
This was different.
Exactly.
You're like, wow, this is different. Yeah. Okay. What was your first impression of John?
Honestly, his profile was horribly douchey. But his pictures look nice.
Okay.
And I literally think I messaged him first and I said, your face looks nice, but your profile's douchey. That was literally the first message. And then I was fully expecting him to be like, screw you, lady, and unmatch me. But he changed his profile. Okay. And I was like, okay, bonus points. Like, he didn't get butthurt about it. And he actually changed it because he probably realized, it was douchey.
Okay.
But then when I saw him, like, in person for the first time, I was like, oh, my gosh, he's incredibly attractive. And I knew he was just in town, though, for, like, a few days.
Okay.
So there was this part of me that was like, don't get too attached, Nicole. Like, no expectations. And I tell people, because it is the truth, that he was probably the first date I'd gone on where I had zero expectations.
Wow.
Because I was like, he
Yeah.
doesn't live here. Like, I had a dating podcast that I was doing on my own at the time. So I was like, this will be good content.
Yeah.
He was interesting because he could keep up with my like little pokes at him.
Yeah.
So I was like, this will be
You're like,
just
okay.
a really good time,
Yeah.
you know? No like expectations. He's going to go somewhere. But I was like, I'm kind of bummed that he doesn't live here so that it could pursue further when I saw him in person.
Because you're like, okay, he's cute.
Yeah.
Like, okay, there's something different about this one too.
Yeah, he was definitely my type. And then on the date too, we talked for literally so long. We like shut the bar down and like started talking, like kept talking in my car.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Okay, well, let me ask you two this. Okay, so you guys said that you met on a dating app, which seriously, I mean, it's such a great tool. Some people, you know, meet on dating apps and they fall in love and they get married, and it's just sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? It doesn't matter. But you guys, you know, and especially with Tinder. So when I hear the people that met on Tinder, it's like, wow, that's awesome. Because you just never know.
Yeah.
You genuinely never know. But
So
I'm going to take you guys back a little bit. So you just mentioned that you had no expectations, and where were you living?
I was in St. Petersburg, Florida at the time.
And where were you coming from?
San Diego.
San Diego, where you guys are at now. Okay. So when you were, you know, kind of like doing a little research and you had this dating app and you're just getting to know about dating and men, even though you said you had no intentions with, you know, anything serious with him, where were you at in general when it came to relationships? Were you open to relationships or were you kind of like, not really feeling that anymore?
I was open, but I
what were you looking
enjoyed dating. Like, I enjoyed getting to know people and how different everybody was. And I could pick up on things like, oh, I like that. And like, I want that in a man. And then I'd be like, oh, maybe I don't want that. Like, I would go on a date and a guy would be like rude to a waiter. And I'd be like, I don't like that.
Right.
You know, so I would pick up on things and it made dating more fun. And I know a lot of women get really discouraged because they're like, I don't want to tell my life story over and over again. And I get that. But I think if you make it fun, then you're open to receiving the things that you want more.
Okay.
Rather than when you're thinking of it as like a chore or like, I just want to be married already. A lot of my friends who have had that mindset before, they will find a man and kind of try to fit him into their mold rather than finding the man that already fits the mold.
Perfect.
So
you were at a stage that you were just like, you definitely wanted a relationship.
Yeah.
But you were actually enjoying the process of meeting different people.
I was not going to settle.
You weren't going to settle.
I wanted it and I had very high standards, and John will tell you that I still have very high standards in relationships, but I knew that it was possible. And so I wasn't going to like give up on that.
Okay.
But I also wasn't going to try to make people into what I wanted them to be either.
Yeah, you were at a time in your life, you're like, if I'm going to do this relationship thing, and we'll get back to your history a little bit, because I know there's a story here. Yeah. It needs to be right.
Right.
Because you probably had before relationships that didn't work out, and you're like, not going to do that again. Okay.
Definitely.
What about you? Where were you at when it came to fun and live, dating, you know, looking for the one or not necessarily? What was going on with you?
Well, mine was a complicated situation,
Okay.
which we can get into when you're ready. But I was definitely in the play around and absolutely nothing serious.
Okay.
Definitely don't date a woman that has a podcast about dating. But I was like, she's so pretty and she's smart and like okay, let me, because I don't want to be put on blast, So yeah, I mean, I was having the time of my life. Yeah. Had a lot of options, a lot of fun, I was like, there's no way. I'm not interested at all in anything more than a night, really.
A night. Okay, yeah, that's cool. Basically. So you already had those intentions. You're like, I'm just meeting new women, having a little fun.
Right.
No expectations either.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Okay. What happened?
Not what he was hoping to happen. Not what he was hoping to happen. But
I'm saying, because we're here today,
I know. And I was like, oh, Tinder, like, that's just,
wow.
He's probably has those expectations that that's going to happen. But I was like, not going that way. I downloaded Tinder because a friend of mine who was around my age had met a serious boyfriend on there.
Okay, yeah.
And I hadn't downloaded it in a long time because it did turn into kind of like a more casual thing. Yeah. And so I downloaded it because she had found something serious.
Okay.
And then that's when I came across him. But I was like, he probably still thinks casual.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he tried. He tried. When we were in the car, he was like, I need to charge my phone at your house. And I was like, there's a charger right here.
You're like, here you go.
I was like, there's one in the car right here. You can use it there. But, you know, he was like, I had to at least try, but didn't end up getting where he thought. And I think that intrigued him more. Yeah. Which, you know, I feel like is a good thing. You know, if it feels right to do something in the moment, I'm not saying it can't work. But sometimes you got to dangle the carrot in front of guys a little bit longer to kind of get them, you know, like if you've gone fishing, you hook the hook, you got to pull the hook in to get them really hooked in there, right? To reel them all the way in. Yeah. Or they might jump off the line. So it's like that
there has to be
also
some
I was having
investment.
fun.
Yeah,
right.
Because if there's not an investment, if you haven't made a guy invest, then why, you know.
Exactly. And my saying is, it's really, this is how I look at it, right? I said, us women, we have the opportunity, like men will pursue you, right? If they're interested in you, they'll pursue you. But we as women, we set the pace. Right. Yeah. So we get to decide, you know, we get to choose. We're like, okay, this guy's pursuing me, but let me set the pace here. Am I leaning in? Am I going to lean out a little bit? Yeah, we get to set the pace. So that's amazing. So you are setting the pace from the very beginning. You're like, wow, she's a little different. Like she's definitely a little different. So then what ends up happening? Because you guys are just telling me that you have this date and you weren't had any expectations and you're only there for a moment and then he leaves. Yeah. What happened?
Well, he was going to Orlando. And so he was like, will you go on another date with me like a few days later? Okay. And I was like, well, I got to work, so maybe I can get off work early. So I got off work early, met him in Orlando because it was only like an hour, 40-minute drive or so.
Only.
Only.
And see, I was like, wow, she's going to take off work, drive all the way out here to see me.
And see, again. I was like, I had a good time.
Okay.
And this is more podcast content. So
she's like, it's more
Orlando.
But it was also a signal to me, like, because
what did they do?
The things I tell guys all the time is that the main things that you really need to look for in a woman is that, number one, she treats you like a king. And number two, she has a high desire for you. Because that's what is going to be the most important longer into the relationship, is that she has a high degree of respect for you. She's treating you in the right way and that she desires you. Because if that's not the case, you're going to be in trouble. And so that was like, you know, she was wonderful, treating me very well, like that she would go and drive an hour and 40 minutes to go on another date with me. To me, that was signaling both of those things. So I was like, okay, this is it. So it really, you know, had an impact on me where I was like, okay, if she's willing to go to this effort, then maybe I will, you know, maybe we have a couple of dates.
Yes.
You know, like, you know, that's
important that you're saying that, John, because it really does take two people, right? And so I hear often, like, we always concentrating on, you know, what the guy's doing and what he's not doing and all that. And I tell women also, I'm like, listen, Linda. Listen, you know? But really, that's so spot on what you're saying, because I'm like, hey, you actually have to be able to show that you are interested. Right. He's going to pursue you and you'll set the pace. Right. But it's not just going to sit there and just like, come to me, do all the things. No, there has to be both of you. Right. So what you're saying to me as a man, so you both he was asking you out again, you were intrigued, and then he felt like, wow, she's really open to this. Because for a woman to decide to drive an hour and 45 minutes? Yeah, there was something about John that you're like, I really feel something here. I'm not sure what's going on, but yes, I want some extra content. But if it wasn't something else, I don't think it just would have been content.
No, it wasn't just the content. Like, we talked for hours. Like, we shut the bar down on our first date, like I said. So, like, the fact that we could talk for that long and we had this, like, comfortability to us that I never had, like, instantaneous. I also had to call him out on a few things, because on the dating app on our first date, he put that he was like 35. But then I looked at his Instagram and he was 40, and I was like, how old are you again? And he was like 35, and I was like, are you sure about that?
You sure?
So I think too, like, I've been the type of woman that I'm not afraid to, like, kind of like test the waters a little bit, but I'm not like disrespectful with
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
You know, I think that adds a fun element as well. And like, you want somebody that's going to be honest with you and like
Absolutely.
say the things like that. So when he invited me, I was like, it's obviously going to be a fun time.
Yeah.
And I want to beat him at mini golf, you know.
And you're like, so let's do that.
Yeah. And so
Okay.
it was, but then on our second date, when we went to Orlando, I felt myself like kind of gravitating towards him in a way like PDA wise that I wasn't normal for me. When he met me on the first date, he like tried to hold my hand and I was like, I don't do that on the first
Right.
date.
Well, yeah, the
Whoa.
first thing she told me when
What?
I
What'd
met
she
her,
say?
she was like, I don't do PDA. But then we did make out in the.
I do have some espresso
And then-
martinis then too.
And then I did hold her hand, and the
And then that
the
was
evening.
it. You're
Yeah,
like, what?
yeah,
No, we didn't
so-
do this, but okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but even
so it's
after
like-
like on the second date, I was like, you know, wanting to like get close to him, and I was like, this isn't like very normal for me.
It wasn't your normal.
Right.
No, no.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, it wasn't my
and
normal.
this was, and like you guys already said very early on, this was different.
Yeah.
This was genuinely different experience than you had before.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that.
Yeah. And well, and
So,
go
yeah.
ahead.
No,
Yeah.
go, John. What
I
were
was
you
gonna say,
saying?
and it definitely wasn't her normal. I know, because when we did get together and we had a place, and her mom came to visit for the first time, we were sitting on the couch and I had my arm around her, and her mom walked in and was like, Nicole, what? That's
Like, it kinda took her back.
She
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like,
really.
because I was like, you don't. Like you wouldn't put your arm around, like you wouldn't
My
cuddle
parents
on the
don't
couch
do
with
a
your
lot of
boyfriend.
PDA.
Yeah.
So like that's
So it wasn't
where
like something you were really used to.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it was
I
like
got you.
no PDA was kind of my norm. So that when she saw that, she was like, huh, what? But
She's like, what's going on?
I
Okay.
just had my arm around her
You
on
was
the
like, I
couch.
just had the arm around. What's I doing?
she's like, Nicole's in love. Touching her.
They're touching.
Literally.
What happened?
That's kind of how it actually was.
You're like, whatever. You're like, okay, mom, whatever. But okay, so let me ask you guys this. So now what I'm hearing is, because I know, as we talked about, I know that you guys now talk about relationships, help people, all
Yeah.
the things. I mean, amazing.
Okay.
But I know it wasn't always like this, right? I know
Right.
that you guys have your own story. So even though you guys were open and you guys were definitely like, let's see what's up. Genuinely, were you also at a place like you knew what you were looking for? Or were you still not there, personally? If that, you understand that question?
Like looking
Like,
for
what
a
were-
partner
Yes.
to like settle down. I feel
Yes.
like I was pretty sure.
Okay.
But I also wasn't set on like, that potentially changing, obviously for the better, like as I got information from the
Okay.
dates. But I felt like I knew because I had been in, I dated for years, had been in like a serious relationship in college, had been in a toxic relationship like right before I met John.
Okay.
So I kind of had went through a lot of the, kind of messy side or the strenuous dating side. So I felt like I had a good understanding of what it would take for me to like get married,
Okay.
which was a big deal, for me. And I was like, I want it to be one time, fingers crossed. So I'd rather wait for someone that's the right person, and do it that way. Because everybody thought that I would get married to my boyfriend in college,
Right.
but there was a part of me that I was like, this doesn't feel
It doesn't
right,
feel right. Okay.
But the further along John and I got, I was like, this is the feeling, like all the cliches started being like making sense. Like
So
when
it was coming down to, for you, then it was like, I will have a certain feeling
Right.
when I know. So you're really in
Yeah.
tune with that.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're like, I'm not sure what it is exactly, but I know that it's going to be a feeling that I'm going to feel a comfort.
Right.
Like I'm going to feel like, this is different because you already said you had this boyfriend in college, but you didn't feel it.
Right. Exactly.
Okay. And that's important for people to understand.
Yeah.
It really, when I ask you that question, let me ask John a question. Where were you, John?
Okay.
What were you looking for?
Well, should we get into the twist of the story?
Let's get in.
Okay. So let's see. The caveat here
Okay.
before I say this
Yes.
is that what I did was wrong.
Okay.
Okay. I acknowledge it.
Don't roll, John. It's
100%. I'm not glorifying what I did. It was completely wrong.
Okay.
Even if I had good reasons,
Okay.
it was still wrong.
Okay.
So I was married.
Okay.
At the time, I was already married.
Okay.
So that's why I wasn't looking for anything serious, because my life was a complicated mess of lies that I had tangled myself in. And, again, not a justification, but the marriage that I was in, I had given up on after like 15 years into it because I don't want to throw any shade, but let's just say that
you're just telling your story, John. It's all good.
It was not. I felt like a lot of things just were not right, no matter how hard I tried to fix things. Okay. And I felt like I could only do so much on my own.
You guys could just not get there, right? It just wasn't happening. Is that kind of in a nutshell? Yeah. There was a lot happening, but you guys could not get to a place that it was peaceful. Yeah,
there were certain issues that came up that I felt like were things that were outside of my control. Okay. So then
well, let me ask you. So you were, like you said, you were married. You were legally married. Right. But you were completely already checked out. It wasn't like, you were like, this is not working. I don't even know what to do at this point. You were just kind of going through the motions, maybe.
I didn't want to break up the family. Yeah. I didn't want to deal with the financial disaster of all of that. So I kind of played house. And then did my own thing. I got to a point where I was like, well, am I going to sacrifice the rest of my life? Or am I, at this point, I'm just going to have fun and enjoy my life and do what I actually want to do. And so again, wrong choice. I should have just bit the bullet and said, that would have been the right.
Shoulda, would have, right? That's what we do. We make decisions sometimes in our life, and it's just like, just what happens. I got it.
And I thought my fate was sealed. Yeah. I thought, all right, there's no chance for, I was going around, I was dating a lot of women. I was going to nightclubs. I was teaching guys how to pick up girls. I had a whole coaching business of doing that. I had a separate apartment where I recorded videos. That was not, it's like, so I was definitely.
You were like completely doing your own thing.
Yeah.
But you were legally married. I got you.
Yeah, I still lived at home, and I have a daughter, so I just didn't want to I was like, okay, well, maybe I can just live this second life and then kind of keep this other life so that no one else has to, obviously bad choice. But
let me tell you something. What you're sharing right now is really going to resonate with a lot of people. Yeah. There are so many people and that they're in situations. Yeah. And they are absolutely not happy. Yeah. And in marriage and commitment, there's so many layers here. You know that. Obviously, you were married before. Yeah. And there's so many layers here. So I totally respect that you're saying that it wasn't, if you had to do it back again, of course you would have done it differently. Right. But I actually understand you. I really do, because I was in a situation too, like you. I was in a marriage and I didn't know what to do anymore. Yeah. I didn't step out, but I was checked out. Yeah. I was checked out. And so, and it was really scary because it wasn't just about me. There was all these layers. And I thought to myself, Charlene, oh my goodness, something's got to change because honestly, how do you want to live from now until death? Yeah. That was a question I asked myself. I'm like, because it's only one time. Right. And I don't know when death is going to happen. Yeah. Right. I can be, which I told my kids I'm going to live to 106 years old. or it could be tomorrow. Yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to be, dark, but I mean, that's genuine. I really had that epiphany. Like I asked myself, Charlene, how you want to live now until death? What are you doing, girlfriend? Right. So I can imagine that struggle for you. It's just like, oh, okay. But now you're like off to the races. Right. Then I come in and then wow, she comes in and like totally like, okay, I wasn't expecting all this.
Yeah, because again, like I said, I had to be smart about how I did things because I had to be very secretive. I was like, there's no, I'm here today, but I'm gone tomorrow. I can never see you again. Like most of the women that I had one woman that was a flight attendant that I was
talking to
like for some time, but she never asked any questions, so I never volunteered any information. But again, I was not about to leave my marriage and to, and break up everything and, throw everything into chaos for any woman until Nicole came along. And like in my heart of hearts, I wanted what I saw in Nicole. I always dreamed of having the relationship. So in a way, even though I wasn't looking for it, I was looking for it. You know what I mean? Because that's what I was out there searching for. I wasn't just going to, yes, I was having fun, but it was, I was seeking love, even if it was only for a night. And it sounds shallow, but it wasn't shallow to me. The way that I saw it, I appreciated the feminine, and I was looking for that. I was looking for the thing I wasn't getting, and it was not just about sex. It was about like just genuinely connecting,
genuine connection.
Yeah,
like really a different, an actual true friendship.
Yeah,
with your partner and someone that you can love,
and
accepts you.
Yeah, yep. and I felt like I would get pieces of that from the different women that I was going out with and hooking up with. But when I met Nicole, that's when I was like, oh, I wish I would have done things differently, especially because at early on, I was like, oh, I am lying to her. She doesn't know.
She didn't know.
She didn't know what was going on. She had no idea. And I was like, if I would have.
What was that doing for you? Were you like that was uncomfortable for you?
Oh, well, yeah. When I came back from Tampa after that trip, I immediately, I was like, I wish I would have gotten a divorce a year ago, because then I could have this like what I could see myself actually being with someone and being happy. Yeah. And I was just kicking myself. And I was like, okay, it's too late now. And I remember talking to a friend of mine and talking for hours and hours after I came back. And she was like, you got to get a divorce now and tell Nicole. And I was like, there's no point, because what's going to happen? I get a divorce. I tell Nicole after being on 3 dates with her, oh, by the way, I'm married.
I'm married. I'm getting divorced.
I have a kid.
I want to be with you. I
have a vasectomy. Okay. Right? Like the three, because she mentioned she wanted to have kids too. So I was like, but I want to date you, like I should be gone. No woman would ever, so what ended up happening was that
he hooked me in so that by the time he told me, I was already in love with him. So I'm like,
which wasn't intense. I mean, we had only gone on 3 dates at that point. And then I told her when I left Tampa, I was like, we will see each other again. Okay. She's like, oh, whatever. I was like, no, we will.
I didn't believe that.
Because I wanted to.
But you
didn't know
yet.
You didn't know his story yet.
No.
She had no idea.
But I was like, guys say that. And even though we had a really nice time, I'm like, I'm not going to wait around for the San Diego guy to make good on his promises.
He tried to get the plug in my house, but I gave it to him in the car.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, look, we had 3 dates. They were really amazing. I could tell something was different with him. But at the same time, I didn't know him deep enough at that point to be like, and
this is the truth. And again, I'm happy we're talking about this.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, it takes some time, right? And some questioning and to really get to know someone, because you can have that initial connection and that initial, all that stuff, but there's layers,
right?
There's layers to people. And I think that's the coolest part is discovering the layers, to see if the layers, as they get on, layered out or whatever you want to call it, if they're going to be a match.
Yeah.
Right? So, okay. So now you don't know. You're thinking, I don't know. You're like freaking out. John's like, what just happened? I wasn't even expecting this, but I'm really into her.
Yeah.
Okay. When he tells you.
He told me, well, we went on a trip together a few months after we had met. And that was also amazing. And he still hadn't told me.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I think there's part of this to this story. So after we had met up for the 3 days and I had gone back to San Diego, and then we were going to meet up again, and it got delayed, but basically we ended up planning a trip to Cancun, and I hardly had any contact with her because I didn't want to. She was liking my gym posts on Instagram. Like,
dang, he's barely messaging
and I'd barely
me
respond
back.
Because I didn't want to have a lot of conversation with her until we met up again, because I felt like if we had a lot of conversation, then it would be a very great betrayal when I told her the truth.
Okay.
So I was like, we'll just...
You're swimming in like...
I was in trouble, right?
Right now? I'm in bad trouble, but I really, really like this girl.
And the only reason why I can talk about this so candidly now, again, I don't mean to be cavalier about it, but I already spent many years beating myself up and going through all the shame and guilt. So I've stopped beating myself up about it and stopped, and have forgiven myself for it. So, but I realized obviously it was wrong.
I'm taking you back to the story. I got you. So you're just,
So we went to Cancun, and I remember talking to my best friend, and I booked the honeymoon suite for and he's like, dude, because he was a pickup guy also doing coaching and he was like, dude, why? He's like, she's going to Cancun with you. You're gonna get laid. Like, she's like it doesn't. You could have the worst hotel in Cancun. It doesn't matter.
Why honeymoon
right?
suite?
He's like, why are you gonna spend all this money, like $700-800 a night, whatever it was on the? And I was like, because I want to pretend like this is my wife and this is my life. Like this, I want to have a week of what I could have had. And then I'll be done with it. Then I'll have at least like that. And that's what I really thought in my mind. I was like,
you were like, let's just see how,
I was like, there's no future here. Like I can't, because once I tell her the truth,
she's going to be gone.
But this could just be how my life could have been. I can have this amazing experience and just pretend like this is actually my life. And then I'll get it out of my system. And then I can just go on with my life knowing that I had this love that was so great, and that's enough for me. And of course it wasn't.
I'm like, John, what are you talking about? It wasn't enough.
Because I promised, I was like, I can't, because I also was like, I cannot carry this forward after this, because I was like, John, you have to just
obviously
one.
You are, but I know.
But I was like, because everything's going to blow up. She's going to definitely be pissed at you. Yes. And then you're going to have a messy divorce when this comes out, because
when it all comes out,
and it's going to just be a whole mess. So I was like, you can have this 1 week and then that's it. But after that week, when I came back, I mean, we had an amazing, it was the most amazing experience.
We just exactly what you were expecting. It's a wonderful time.
And they were calling me Miss Sonmez. And I joke now that they like manifested us getting married.
Right.
Because they were calling me Miss Sonmez the whole time. And because we had the honeymoon suite.
The honeymoon suite.
But I was like, no, I'm not Miss Sonmez. They're probably like, what the heck is going on?
I mean, we're spending 6 hours in the pool every day, just kissing for 6 hours in the pool. It was crazy.
It was very romantic.
Yeah. But when I came back.
So what happened when you came back? Seriously.
What's that?
What happened when you came back?
Well, when I came back, my head was definitely spinning. I was like, okay, I got to see her one more time. Just one more time. So
and I told him too, I was like, you need to come back to like St. Pete and you need to stay with me and let's just do normal things.
Okay.
Because when we went on our first 3 dates.
Everything's been so exciting and all this fun. And then now Cancun and the honeymoon suite.
Exactly.
Wow.
So I'm like,
you guys are on The Bachelor already. Like all the, I don't think, how do they, I mean, it's all the stuff so quick. I'm like, how do they do when they get back to real life?
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's how I felt too. I was like, we need to like just come for like a week and we'll hang out and I'm going to go to work and like we'll go on maybe like a few dates, like dinner dates here, but let's like see how normal life is.
To see how it is.
Yeah. And then by the end of that.
I came back to Tampa for like 2 weeks later for a week. And then, and then it was amazing, still most amazing. And then, she was like, one day she was like, say it.
Because I could just feel that he like loved me. I don't know how else to put it.
Okay.
But so I was like, just say it. Because he was like, seems like he was like wanting to say it, but he wasn't saying it. And I was like, just say it.
You say it. Now, did you know yet about his situation before he said it?
No.
Okay, but
this is still.
She still didn't know.
Okay. So, and then she knew that you were in love with her, and she just wanted you to just get it over with because she didn't know about all the other stuff yet.
Right. No.
So she was just like, buddy.
Well, then he was like,
so I said it.
He said it, and I was like, you can't just tell me you love me and us not be together.
She's like, you know what this means?
Yeah, I was like, you know what this means.
And I was like, you don't know what this means. I know what this means.
Oh my goodness.
You don't know what this means. And I was just like, John, what kind of mess?
Yes,
you already created a mess, and now the mess has become
messier.
But at that point, I was like, I think when I left, I was like, I'm going to come back and I'm moving. And she still didn't know.
Okay.
Right. And so I remember being on the plane coming back to San Diego, and I'm like, I definitely have to get a divorce and move. And it's going to be hard. But, and part of it was like, I didn't need to disrupt my life was still working, even though it was the wrong thing. It was working. But I was like, this opportunity is never going to come again. And I still I still have to go and do all the stuff. Yep. And she still might say, no, get out of here. Yep. Like a lot of women, but something in my heart, I knew that even when I told her this truth, that she was, because I just knew it. And so I went back and I did the hard stuff because I had to do all the hard stuff first before even telling, because I couldn't tell her and be like, oh yeah, and now I
haven't told her. Yeah, you're like, I needed to just, because she's like, wait a minute, you're telling me this and you've been lying to me and you're here and you still haven't told the other one. So okay, I got you.
And so, and I said I'm moving to Florida, and and I settled that, and then I had texted her during the day and was like, I need to talk to you. Yeah,
and he was like, I need to talk to you about something, and I was like, he has a kid. Like while I was like, he has a kid. I'm like, it's something big.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't think it was the married thing, but I was like, he has a kid, and he just didn't tell me.
Yeah.
Then he called me.
Then I went to my studio apartment and I FaceTimed her. I remember she's eating ravioli in the green bowl.
How long have you guys known each other at this point? 3 months, maybe 2 months, a month.
We've known each other for like 5 months, I think. Point. But we'd been on three dates,
and then the
like trip. 4 days in Cancun and probably 4 or 5 days. So we had spent a total of maybe
less than 2 weeks together.
Yeah, less than 2 weeks together.
It's just a time frame because you guys were not living. Okay, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So then now you're on FaceTime.
Yeah. And she already guessed the kid part. I think that's what she said, but I said, no, I got more. I got three bombs to drop on you. I'm married. I do have a kid, and I have a vasectomy. So.
Oh, that's right, because she wanted kids.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So that's why I was like, but I just knew that,
You felt at that point, you knew that you had such a connection with her.
Yeah.
That you knew no matter what, regardless at that point, I have to be honest with her.
And it seems
and just
insane.
Take that chance, whatever that is.
And I knew she would still want to go forward. It seems insane to think that. Mm-hmm. But just the connection we had was so strong that I just knew it, and so.
It was definitely hard, though, because I feel like if it was any other guy except him, it would have been immediately
Why was it different with John?
When he told me, I had to sit there and I had to be like, this is the perfect man. Like, you could not make a more perfect man, but there's these other things. But I was like, would I choose a less perfect man who doesn't have these things just because he doesn't have those things, and not choose a man that's like, yes, he's made mistakes, but he's actively showing me that he's working through those things and he has all these other qualities that I haven't found collectively in anybody else. Mm-hmm. So I had to be like, I feel like I know who John is deep down, even though it hadn't been a very long time. Mm-hmm. That is ultimately why I moved forward. Like, I did love him, but it felt like him as a man was also something that I would never find anywhere else.
Well, again, you guys are going to let's go back to what you guys were talking about. Even through all this, moving parts, this craziness, that's a lot to start out with, right? But both of you said, this was something I've never felt before.
Yeah.
It wasn't just, because you already said that you've kind of been doing the thing and all the thing, and you just like love them, leave them, whatever. It's kind of, you're doing your life. I got you. And you've been kind of doing the same thing in a way, but you weren't married, but you're a single lady, but you're just, doing your thing.
Yeah.
But with you two, there was sincerely something completely different that you both have never experienced before.
Yeah.
Would you say that's accurate?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you guys, and listen, we're not saying that this is the way to go.
No.
But you know what I mean?
Don't recommend
this at all.
No.
But everyone, you guys, they're just sharing their story.
Yeah.
Right.
That's genuinely sharing their story. Because when you are being able to be honest about the truth. That's so helpful for people because and a lot of people, you know, they have these relationships and maybe they didn't start out right, but it's amazing. And there's a lot of shame around certain things. But the reality is I'm hearing both of you have taken accountability for, you know, have you guys shown up and you guys really knew that it was going to take a moment. I'm sure there was a lot of moving parts. It wasn't easy, but it was genuinely something that you guys knew that you guys were meant to be together.
Yes.
Is that
definitely
pretty accurate?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah.
And I just, you know, I remember because it took a lot of thinking on my, and just because it was tough.
Yes.
It was tough to, especially, I had been very good at keeping my secret. So it was tough to do, but I kept on thinking to myself, I was like, no matter how tough this is, because, you know, I have a daughter too, and that was some drama too.
Yes.
You know, because
how was your daughter at the time?
She was 9.
She was 9. Okay. Because how long have you guys been together now?
4.5 years.
4.5 years.
Yeah.
So she's
about to be 14.
14. Okay. Yeah. So she was 9 years old. Okay.
Yeah. And so, but the thing that I kept on saying was like, no one has, I will never find, I cannot betray this kind of love. Like no one has ever loved me the way that Nicole has loved me. I cannot betray this. Like there's whatever I have to go through, I will not find this again, you know? And like I said, I had been dating, there was not any woman that would ever make me give up the life that I was living, that, you know, and to go through the pain that I was going to have to go through. But I just kept on thinking, I could not betray this. Like I have never experienced the level of love that Nicole was showing me. Like she loves me more than anyone ever has. And that's why I had to go forward with it, you know?
It was, you just knew. You were just like, there's no way I'm not going to go through this.
Right.
Right. There's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
What did you learn about yourself as a man when it came to relationships and how to be honest with yourself?
Yeah, I mean,
there's so many men that they listen to this.
Yeah.
And they're in situations that, you know, they either going with the flow or they're not really thinking that they can actually have this type of genuine love or whatever that means.
Yeah.
So in your perspective, because you were that guy on the other side, married with the kids, kind of living this life, totally disconnected, not happy, miserable, but still feeling like I got to do the right thing, which, you know, it's not the right thing to stay with someone necessarily if you're really not with that person. But you know what? Come on. We all have reasons for why we do what we do. Okay? I get that. But now looking back, so for listeners that are listening right now and they're like, oof, okay, you know, I'm feeling something here. I'm miserable. How and what did you do? Like, how did you get honest with yourself?
I mean, it took some time to kind of figure these.
Yeah.
In my first marriage, I was not the guy that I am today.
Okay.
To some degree, I was. I mean, I think that compared to a lot of people, I showed up pretty good.
Okay.
However, I still fell way, way short of what I've learned about being a man in a relationship and understanding and validating women's emotions and how femininity works and how to be a masculine man in a relationship. Okay. So there's a part of, you know, I'm very much against divorce. It seems weird for me to say that, but I almost always, coach a lot of guys and I'm like, no, do not get a divorce. It's the worst thing that you'll go through in your entire life. It's worse than, my mother died from Parkinson's a couple years ago and we watched her die for 7 days and divorce was way harder than that. Yeah. You know, even with someone that I didn't even love anymore, you know, just because it's such a ripping change so it's best to avoid it. So it's
horrible.
Yeah, it's horrible.
Yes.
But I think that the thing I would tell guys and what I had learned was that they should really actually, you know, I'm not saying that again, that my situation wasn't that, you know, there was circumstance, there was things, there's another person in the relationship, right? But most men, most people, women as well, who give up on a relationship and a marriage, they haven't actually done the real work because they don't know what it is. Yep. And that's the thing is, and again, it doesn't mean that in my situation that it would have saved it, but I could have still shown up better. Yep. And what I'm saying is that I'm glad things worked out the way they did. I'm glad that I'm with Nicole. Absolutely, I would never trade that for anything. But for most guys, they don't even know what they don't know. There's books I would give. I would say that every man should read The Way of the Superior Man by David Data, Masculine Relationship by G.S. Youngblood, and probably The Alabaster Girl by Zan Perion. Those are probably the three ones I would say. Read those books, apply those things, give it 6 months of forget about your needs completely, and maybe 3, whatever you want to, at least a significant amount of time where you just focus on just the other person's needs. And if you show up like that and you really work on yourself and then it's still you're not seeing a response from the other person, then sure. Now you can walk away knowing that you've done everything that you can. And the same applies for women as well. On the flip side, I would say read The Surrendered Wife, The Empowered Wife, and the Queen's Code. And if you apply all that stuff and you do all that stuff for 3 months or 6 months, whatever the time frame is, and you don't worry about your own needs and you just focus on
the other person.
And then at the end of that, there's still not a change, a response to that person, then sure, then leave. But, but don't take it lightly. And that's what, I learned that I didn't know what I didn't know. And even though I was showing up, most people would have said, oh, wow, you're actually a great guy. You're a great husband, right? Before I had, gone and did my own thing.
Did your own thing, yep.
Right. Very patient, very tolerant, but I was still 10% of what I know today. And I'm still learning every single day. And so I think that most people, men and women, they really don't know how to be. And that's why a lot of the reason why we created our podcast was because.
And tell the name of the podcast.
Better Than Perfect.
Better Than Perfect. Yeah. And why did you guys create that podcast?
Basically, well,
we made a lot of mistakes. We've been through a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And I think having the perspective of a man and a woman who have been through those things
that's
are
what
now
I got
together.
Out of your podcast. It was pretty awesome, you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. We just want to help people, and like you said too, John talking about this, which is not easy to talk about.
No, and John, we love you so much. Thank you, honestly. See, that takes courage.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you. It takes courage, and it really takes someone to been able to go through a hard thing and said that I already did the work to understand my part in it and what I could have done differently and what I could have, even though, yes, I got the love of my life, but I understand it completely different now. Yeah. And I'm telling you, there's so many people, that just don't share their stuff.
Yeah.
So I think you just sharing that, they're going to be like, oh, okay. Yeah, that's kind of me too. Or whatever that is. So this is not, everybody has a different situation, their stuff. And what I've always appreciated, what I always understand is regardless of what we did, we did things at a certain time in our lives based on where we were at.
Right.
Honestly, based on our maturity, based on information, just all that stuff. Right. And hopefully what happens is, and yes, our choices have consequences, good or bad. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And the reason why me as myself, as a woman that has learned not to beat myself up from all the stupid things I have done. Seriously, I'm like, what were you thinking? Just talking about my own personal thing. Is I realized, Charlene, you were at a certain place in your life, at a certain time, certain circumstances, all the things. It doesn't excuse some of the things I've done. No.
Right.
But I'm able to look at it in a different perspective and be like, okay, I can see now. Yeah. So that's what I'm getting from you, John. I'm getting someone that's being humble about it. I'm getting someone that is like, I'm just going to share my truth, but that's not me anymore. I have done the work. I'm processing differently. I'm learning differently. And I'm not saying that was good or bad. I'm just saying that's not where I'm at now.
Right.
Is that kind of clear things up? Yeah.
Yeah. We just wanted to be real because
Absolutely.
Like you said, you see so many people painting this perfect picture and most people don't have the perfect picture that they're even painting.
Nope.
So with the Better Than Perfect, we took those struggles or the things that we've been through and have used those things to have the best relationship that we could have. And we want people to see we've been through our own stuff, and, you know, you can still make it through, and, you know, life isn't going to be sunshine and rainbows all the time, but you can have the love that you want if you work on these things and you work through some of the things that you've gone through. And, you know, the beginning of our relationship was really hard. It was a lot of stuff, but it also showed me that we can handle a lot
Hard
of stuff.
things. You guys can go through hard things.
And we called it Better Than Perfect relationship because, you know, the relationship that we haven't found a parallel to. Like, I mean, we literally do not yell at each other, don't call each other names. We spend almost every moment together. It's, you know, the most amazing thing. It seems unreal. Most people will be like, "Oh, you're lying." Like, no.
Yeah,
like,
no,
Nicole's never called me a bad name. Not one time in our entire history. Not to say that if she did that like it just, the point is that it's just like our relationship is so close, you know, like more than I ever even imagined possible. And so what we wanted to talk about was this idea that it's not this is actually a better than perfect relationship because we're growing. Like the struggles that we do face, it causes each of us to grow. And that's better than perfect, because if you just had a perfect relationship, then you don't have growth. You
don't have growth.
You know.
And now I'm going to break out with this because you just reminded me of something. My little note. I mean, this is my first time. That's exactly what I said. I was thinking, your podcast name suggests that you believe that love doesn't have to be perfect to be extraordinary. Can you share what inspired you to create a Better Than Perfect podcast and how that philosophy plays out in your own relationship? And what you just said was exactly what I thought. I'm like, you know what? I love the name of your podcast because I thought you can still, nothing's going to be perfect, but it can be extraordinary still. Right. And when you are able to connect with people, you know, your partner, and have such realness and authenticity, then this is where I truly believe is the juice of a relationship. Yeah. Right? Yeah. When we're able to help one another completely have that safety to be completely vulnerable and feel safe to have that with one another, how that will truly make your relationship connect in a way that you've probably never had before. Yeah. So when you guys have experienced all the things that you experienced, so you already talked about that you already came from, you know, if you had good relationships, you've had toxic relationships, but you knew that it was going to be a feeling that you wanted. But I'm also noticing, and you guys, I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth, I'm just kind of, you know, feeling this. But I knew, it sounds like to me that you genuinely wanted to have someone that was as raw and real, as raw and real they can, and been able to let go of those layers. Right. Yes. And I feel like, you know, you were longing for that. You just weren't sure what that was until you met each other. Can you guys talk to me and to the listeners, for people that are like, huh? What is happening right now? You know, there's a lot. Right, there's a lot. What does that mean? Talk about what that means when you have that genuine love and acceptance for one another, because we're not perfect. Yeah. Right? How that really enhances relationships.
I mean, it's really hard to put into words because John, this will sound horrible, but I'm going to tell you the truth.
You guys haven't stopped you guys yet, so let's keep going. That's good.
John was the first man that I'd been with that I loved every single thing about him. Even the things that would have drove me crazy with someone else. Like, he leaves his contacts everywhere. And I love that about him. But I genuinely love that about him. Okay. But with someone else, it would have bothered the hell out of me. Got it. And I don't know if it's just that we got really deep into each other very early on, or if it was just like, we believe in soulmates, and so if it was just that instant, like, I found you after looking for you for so long. But it's hard to put into words exactly like what caused that to happen or how it happened, but like you said, it is a deep love that you will not experience until you find somebody that sees you fully for who you are, sees you so vulnerable and like the barest, rawest version of yourself, and still chooses to love you. And John has seen that in me, and I have seen that in him. Right. Yeah. And there's never been like me acting different towards him because I saw an ugly side or him acting different. Yeah. It's just been this like complete total love for each other. And I can't tell you how it happened, but
it's there.
It's there, and you can feel it.
And I think there's two elements to it. I think there's one is the kind of woo-woo cosmic, maybe soulmate element of just the connection that is just transcends this world that we have. But I also think on the more pragmatic sense, and this is an analogy I like to use, is one of tooth decay. I think because a lot of people originally they're like, oh, you guys are just in the honeymoon phase. Well, now we've been together for 4.5 years. Honeymoon phase.
And you've gone through all the crazy, a lot of crazy.
And we're still just as honeymoon phase.
Still honeymoony.
Still honeymooning.
Honeymooning.
Yeah. And the reason why I think this is my theory as to why relationships fail and why people do get annoyed with each other and bitter is because it's just like tooth decay. So if you don't brush your teeth, what ends up happening is tartar builds up on your teeth. You get plaque, right? And the more that plaque builds up, you don't go to the dentist, then it causes tooth decay, causes your teeth to rot.
Right.
And I think the same thing happens in relationships is that you get tartar in the relationship. So you get upset, you have fights or arguments or whatever, and you resolve it, but you don't completely scrub it off. And so as that tartar builds up in the relationship, you end up having this plaque in the relationship, which is all these things that you've swept under the rug where you seem like you're fine, but you haven't really done that deep cleaning. And as that builds up, then bitterness and resentment is the plaque that is in the relationship. And eventually you come to a point where you get the cavity and you hate each other. But the sign of it, it's just like we see plaque on the teeth and we're like, okay, there's something wrong here. Is when you're annoyance, because that's the beginning of bitterness and resentment. And resentment and bitterness is what kills love and kills a relationship.
It does.
And if you clean that out so that you never have it, like we resolve all issues. Sometimes we've had to talk for 12 hours straight. Literally. Now we're better. We don't have to do 12 hours
now it's
straight.
Quicker, right?
It's much quicker.
In the beginning, it takes time to clean it out. Yeah.
But we always committed to, resolving it. I remember Nicole was a little bit avoidant also, and I was
very
like, no, we're
he's being nice. I was very avoidant.
We're talking about this. Like, we're not running away. We're not doing timeouts.
We're not doing timeouts.
Right. I didn't like that at first, but it was necessary.
It was necessary.
Yeah, it was necessary. And I'm glad he didn't give up and just be like, okay, like I tried, because there were definitely times I fought against it.
But we have no bitterness, and that's because we always clean it out.
You guys.
And that's what keeps the relationship where we're staying in the honeymoon phase, where we're just constantly in love with each other like we just fell in love yesterday. And I truly believe that that's the key, is making sure that the bitterness never, ever builds up. And if it does, you completely clean it out. And then I think anyone can be in that better than perfect and constant honeymoon state. I really do.
You really do. I believe that too, actually. I believe that with all my heart. I love that you're saying that. I love that if you are brushing things away or being avoidant or not really addressing it head on, like quickly. I'm always like, oof. Let's get to it and let's move on. Right? Like, come on, guys. Like, and that's what people don't understand. You can find, your soulmate and you can be happy and everything can be great. But there is also intentionality. Like you have to be able to brush your teeth still all the time. Don't take that for granted. And I think that's something that happens too, because some people do find that, person that they're like, okay, this is it. This is it. Mm-hmm. But they fall back into the old patterns. They don't, they don't take the time because things are great. Yeah. They don't take the time to still brush their teeth. Well, I have no cavities now. That I love that analogy. I have no, but they don't take the time to brush their teeth. So what I'm learning about you two, even though you guys started a little rough, that's a lot.
Yeah.
You guys genuinely decided we're going to do this different.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And we are not going to allow ourselves to fall back and whatever, you have your patterns. Mm-hmm. You have your patterns. I got my patterns. We all got our patterns. Right. And do it in a way that we can have a loving, successful relationship. So 4 years from now, 8 years from now, 10 years from now, come back. 20 years from now from this, I'll be here. I'll still be here. From the podcast that you guys can sincerely say, yes, there's nothing easy. There's no easy. But when you love someone, genuinely love someone, and you can look at yourself and you can look at how you're showing up and you can look at how you're putting into the relationship, that's why you guys have what you have right now.
Right.
That is really beautiful. That is really cool, you guys. And what I love too is, I'm so excited. What I love is, honestly, these conversations just go too fast for me. But what I love is the listeners that are listening, sometimes things are not going to be so perfect.
Right.
Okay. I know that. Like, it's not always going to be a straight line. It's not, there's times you meet someone, you're pretty cleared, they're cleared, you meet, everything's great. There's not a lot of baggage, going on. I got it. But sometimes life, will throw you a little curve and you're like, whoa, what am I going to do with this?
Yeah.
And for you two to continue on pushing through that, but it wasn't just pushing through that. It was like, if we're going to do this, I want it to be awesome.
Yeah.
I want it to look back and say, we knew that we had something special here and we're willing to do the work.
Yeah.
Why do you think it is people stop when they get into the relationships and they stop doing the work?
I think
Because
personally,
that's where it starts to me.
my opinion is, before I met John, I felt like I had done a lot of work on myself. I was in a good place. But when you are with a partner, especially a good partner like John, they will mirror back all the things that you really haven't worked on.
That's how it
Like,
goes.
I could live on my own and be avoidant, and it's not a problem. Who am I I'm not avoiding myself.
Yes.
No one's there to avoid.
Yes.
So, I was like, I'm handling these things. But then John comes along and he's like, you're avoiding. And I'm like, you're right. And then, he'll be like, you're being defensive about this. And I'm like, you're right. And it's not always that easy. I'm not always like, you're right.
Yeah,
Nor
you're
am I
like, oh, yeah,
you're not.
you're like, no, I'm not.
So, like, he's just mirrored back a lot of things.
Let's talk about the tip of the week, which is your body always knows before your mind catches up. This is one of the most powerful truths about feminine embodiment. Your body is constantly communicating with you through sensations, emotions, even those settled tensions of openness. But most of us were taught to override our bodies and trust logic instead. That's the masculine way. And the feminine way, it's all about turning inwards. So I want you to try this. I want you to take a little time here. When you're feeling unsure, anxious, or overthinking, pause. Ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me right now? Take a moment to feel your body. And what I mean by that is, that tightness in your chest, that lightness in your belly, that pull in your heart. That's clarity speaking to you. Because here's the deal. Your feminine power is your sensitivity. And it's not weakness. It's your guidance system. And you need to trust it because it never lies. And if you would like to know more about how you can step into your feminine energy, your feminine embodiment, I have an amazing tool for you. It's called Feminine Embodiment Practice. For a very affordable price, the Feminine Embodiment Experience includes a downloadable guide, video with instructions, and a Spotify playlist with over 100 songs. Please make sure you look in the show notes to get access to the link. That's a wrap. Wow. Thank you, John and Nicole, for such an incredible conversation and your authenticity and sharing your truth with all of us. That was so powerful. If you're loving this podcast and these incredible conversations, please hit the subscribe button and leave a 5-star review. Don't miss an episode because each week I'll be bringing on guests and experts who will share their knowledge about love, dating, and relationships so you can apply it into your own life. I'll see you next week. And until then, cheers to great love.